Welcome back to Stars and Gripes, where we tear apart the actions of the bitter activists masquerading as journalists in the United States. First up is the media's reaction to Donald Trump's new press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. The left pretends to be a champion of women until they find one who is a conservative. Once that happens, they love nothing more than tearing down women with the most petty and vacuous of insults. Leavitt appears to be a fierce operator, but she's also 27 and arguably quite glamorous. So of course, the kind and progressive voices at The View reacted to her appointment like this.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Whatever I'm saying, this is the first time that she's been she may be. But my point is that job would not maybe have been open to her.
No, I understand. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
And the abuse continued.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
Attacking a woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the groupthink is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see what it is. It was also interesting, too, because she was conflating two ideas. This word wokeness didn't look like she really understood what it meant, or certainly the way Karoline Leavitt meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring to the table.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I don't think anyone's suggesting it's woke to give a woman a job. Very, very duplicitous the way that she tried to word that and spin that. But let's move on, because Vice President J.D. Vance sat down for an extended interview with Face the Nation's Margaret Brennan, and the journalist got increasingly more agitated as she failed to pin him down on a bunch of gotcha questions. And it all started getting really tense when the topic of immigration came up.
If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
A chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
The reporter kept editorializing. Now, it wasn't an interview at this stage, but a debate. And J.D. Vance didn't seem to care.
We absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Kosha, let's bring you back in. What a brilliant retort to a journalist who is honestly making the argument, well, if they were radicalized in America, then that somehow, it doesn't make a difference. That's obviously gone quite viral in the way that he just punched through the question.
It has. It's become an internet genre all onto itself after that, and there's all sorts of memes out there that are really funny. I don't really care, Margaret, is kind of a new rallying cry to his side of the debate. But you know what she was doing is what the left side of, certainly in America and really other liberal democracies, have been doing on the immigration debate, which is they purposely sort of hide in the weeds that this program is legal, that program is legal, we do have a vetting apparatus. Hence, it was all done, versus what the other side is trying to do is zoom out, look at the big picture, which is that mass migration is at unprecedented levels in America, illegal and, yes, even legal, even if it is ostensibly a legal program of asylum seekers and refugees. Is that helping the national interest? That is kind of what Trump and Vance is their signature issue. That's what he was trying to bring it back up to, and she was trying to get mired into, well, they were vetted and this person got radicalized later, but not before he was entered, and nobody cares. And so that summed it up.
Well, yeah, who cares if they were vetted? Obviously, whatever they did to vet didn't work. And that's the whole point. And I think the people are seeing through this. But look, you've seen the treatment that JD Vance gets, but how does the media interview politicians on the other side of the spectrum? Here's MSNBC at its finest.
Well, actually, let me ask you about that on this point. A lot of people have been today and the last few days crediting your campaign and crediting all the reporting during the campaign that identified Project 2025 as essentially what looked like a blueprint for the incoming Trump administration to dismantle the American government. They denied it. They said they had nothing to do with it, said they'd never heard of it. Does it seem to you like that's actually what they're doing?
Oh, it is. It doesn't seem it is.
What an absurd television show. Just stating as a fact that Donald Trump is dismantling the American government. And what a softball leading question from Rachel Maddow. Okay, maybe that was just her intro though. Soften him up before getting to the really tough questions.
What do you think America's listening to you right now, thinking about what might have been had you been vice president instead of J.D. Vance, what might have been had Kamala Harris been the president right now instead of Donald Trump? People hearing you talking about the pushback and the fight and that mattering. What does that mean in practical terms? The average person watching you right now who agrees that this needs a big pushback, what should they do?
Yeah, and you know that overused term, the frog in the boiling water, we've been in the damn pot way too long.
He is given literally the easiest possible questions, and he still manages to say the most stupid things possible. Kosha, I don't know what to say about that first. I mean, the fact that this show just goes to air with allegations, it's actually not even an allegation. It was just a statement of truth that the American government is being dismantled. You know, put that to one side. The second aspect of this is the questions, the raised eyebrows, the way that they're just so glad to have this bloke here. It's such a juxtaposition between the way that they interview anybody on a conservative side of politics.
Indeed. And the thing that's interesting about MSNBC, similar to The View, they've got their audience niche that they speak to, and they're producing a product for that audience. They are declining. They declined precipitously after the election. I think they were averaging 1.3 million viewers last year, and after the election, that was down to 800,000. They've had a little bit of a recovery coming up after the inauguration, and Rachel Maddow is their biggest star. She's their highest-rated host. She was down to 1 day a week and had the sweet deal, actually, in terms of what she was getting paid to do that, which was widely reported. They brought her back to 5 days a week to help try and resuscitate that in the era of Trump news that we live in. And in that mold, she's going to try and get some people from the other side and try to skewer them. as we saw, but I don't think they'll be successful because the current people in the administration are actually very savvy with adversarial media, more so than Republicans were in the past. And then on this side, she's going to have very friendly softball interviews with the other side of the aisle, and that seems to be their recipe. We'll see if they're able to hold on to the little bit of a rebound that they had in ratings, because if not, I don't know how long this is sustainable just as a business model.
Well, it's really good for us. It's free content, so I hope they keep going. The world's tech giants have had a pretty major change of heart backing the Trump presidency in. It has angered a lot of journalists. But this week, Meta even settled its lawsuit with Trump at a cost to them of $40 million, which linked the decision to ban the president from the social network. Kosha, how far we've come. At one point, you had the president banned from Facebook. Now the bloke's Mark Zuckerberg, he's standing up next to the president as if they're best mates. He's saying all the right things to get on his right side. What do you make of it?
It's quite funny. He was there standing at the inauguration. He donated money to the inauguration fund, and then simultaneously at the same time, this lawsuit was going on and he settled. So that kind of two sides of the coin thing is quite funny. It is a remarkable turnabout for sure. I don't think anybody could have predicted the level with which, obviously, Trump's comeback, which is much widely reported, has been, because not only politically, just all these offshoots and tentacles are also part of his comeback story. I suspect part of why they settled is also because if it were to go to trial, there would be a lot of discovery there, and probably not the best communications internally within Facebook that led up to that decision to cancel the account of a sitting United States president, which is what he was at that time in the wake of January 6th. All sorts of infringements, First Amendment, discrimination, et cetera. And it's just in their interest to not be going to trial with, who is currently the sitting president. And it's just much easier to settle.
Kosha Gada, thank you so much.